Welcome everyone to our Empower Your Workforce event. My name's Steve Campion and I lead our growth initiatives for Toastmasters District 71, which supports people in Ireland and in the UK. Each of our Empower Your Workforce sessions is live, it's unique, it's special, and in each one we hear from different people, which means that we get different perspectives about how this approach to helping people develop their skills in the workplace can benefit your organization and can benefit individuals. I said this session is live, but we're recording it. So if you are watching this as a recording, I'll put some comments in the description below about how to get in touch with us, how to get your questions answered, and how to follow up. In this session, I'll give a brief description of the Toastmasters organization, its history, what we do, why we do it. And then we're going to hear from Declan Drummey, who is going to speak about his experience within an organization that uses Toastmasters, and also Pat Johnson, who's got a huge amount of expertise about adult education and how people can develop their skills in this way. He's got tremendous expertise, tremendous knowledge, literally written the book on the topic, and we're looking forward to hearing from her. We also have behind the scenes Eileen O'Neill kindly supporting us from Enterprise Ireland in helping this event go well. If you don't know what Toastmasters is, it is a global educational non-profit organization. It was founded just over 100 years ago by Dr. Ralph Smedley in Southern California. And the goal has always been to empower people to be more effective contributors in their workplaces and in their communities. He always had this vision of helping people learn together to develop those skills that are valuable, and particularly develop the skills related to confidence, communication, and leadership. Ever since the program was first developed, it was built around adult education principles, built around the latest ways of thinking that help people develop those skills. And that education program and that delivery mechanism has evolved and grown over the past 100 years in line with latest technologies, latest ways of thinking, and the latest ways that people need to interact in the workplace, in their communities, and in the places where they live and work. Since that founding, Toastmasters organization has grown significantly. There are now around 15,000 Toastmasters programs in operation around the world. There are 300,000 people benefiting from the program. And since the foundation, millions of people have gone through the education program, learned and contributed to their society. We're going to hear from a couple of people who've got personal experience of the Toastmasters program, how it's helped them, how it's helped their organizations, and how it's helped other organizations. Our first speaker is Declan Drummey. Declan is an electronics engineer for Analog Devices. That organization has been running the Toastmasters program since 2021. And Declan's going to speak about his own experience and also how the organization has benefited from having a Toastmasters program. In fact, Declan became so enthusiastic about the Toastmasters program that he now serves as one of the leaders of Shannon Toastmasters, a community club that helps people in the local community develop exactly those skills. And I would ask all of you here, I would ask everyone, how often do you encounter a training program at work that makes someone so enthusiastic that they want to go and teach it to other people? This is something that we quite often encounter in the Toastmasters world, and that's why the program has been so successful. When Declan's not working, he's a very proud father to Sam and Jessie, and he likes challenging himself with speech competitions. So with that, I would like to hand over to Declan to please share his experiences and the experiences of Analog Devices. Declan.
Thanks a million, Steve. That's a lovely introduction. And I've one mission today, and that's just to try and convince you why I think all organizations need to have a Toastmasters program. I've come to strongly believe that. But something I want to try before we even get into my experience is just a little experiment. And I'm sure someone there at the other end has an AI program that they could launch quickly. If not, don't worry, I'll just bring it to. But does anyone want to volunteer? Do they have it on their phone, or do they have it on their computer in front of them there, some AI search engine? And I'm going to ask you to type in a question. So what I'll do is, and look, no pressure. If we don't, I'll just tell you, I'm going to paste into the chat a question. So basically, what is the number one skill for career advancement, regardless of the job? Now, if you do have, I'll give it a second there. You obviously are forming the answer, and I'm obviously leading you to this answer, but we'll see what comes back anyway. And if anyone wants to come off mute and call out what their AI has told them.
I can do it there, Declan. So mine said the number one skill for career advancement, regardless of the job, is effective communication.
Yeah,
I
was hoping it would be that.
Yeah.
Now, we all know it, in fairness, that communication skills are so important, and that's across the board. That's why it's important to state any job. It benefits life, it benefits everywhere. Communication skills are essential. So now, Daniel, if you were to ask what's the best way to, or the quickest way to improve this skill? So you're on mute there.
Indeed. So the best way to actually get that skill, is it?
Yeah, from your AI, what would it tell you?
Oh, a second there now.
And again, your others could be trying this as well. Of course, I'm leading you to what I hope will be the answer.
So
I'm saying here the best way to...
Yes, go ahead, Declan. Daniel?
No. So the best way to improve effective communication is basically practice in different areas. So improve verbal communication. And it does say how to improve. It does say join Toastmasters or take speaking courses.
Okay, I wasn't expecting that, but someone put in the comment as well there, practice and feedback. And that seems to come back universally. And Toastmasters is 100% that. It's practice and feedback. I'm going to use a really simple analogy. I want to develop abs. I'm not saying I do, but just say I did. A six-pack. And I go onto YouTube and I'll see 1,001 different videos how to do it. I might pick a program and I'll follow that diligently and I might achieve my goal. But obviously, if I want to maintain that, I'm going to have to keep working on it. So maybe to motivate myself, I go to the gym, I'll employ the services of a personal trainer to help me, keep me motivated and give me the feedback I need to improve and so on. So if you think of in work, those programs that you tend to go on for education, they're bounded. They bring you and give you skills and then they cut the ties, off you go, practice it. Toastmasters gives you all that education, but it gives you the ground for practice and feedback. And for me, that is the massive difference. Toastmasters, you meet every second week and you put these skills to practice. Not only do you that, you've experienced mentors at that meeting or that session giving you feedback. So you're constantly developing. So that skill is going that way and not that way. And that's what's missing, I think, in most programs. And that's where I really think Toastmasters benefits any organization. And it definitely has me. And one thing I'm going to do quickly, and I'll paste it into the chat. And Steve, I was supposed to start a timer for myself. So maybe you can tell me when I'm coming towards my 7 minutes allotted time. But I'm just going to paste in the agenda from my meeting. Sorry, that's not working there now, but I just talk through it. So I have an agenda held up here, and that's my meeting that we meet every second week. And like every gym, you have a heap of equipment. They target different muscle groups. So in the meeting, you've a load of different roles that rotate each week. and target a different skill. So you have someone that will chair the meeting. You have someone that talks about grammar, someone that times the meeting, someone that evaluates a speech. There's someone speaking. If you're not in a speaking role, you've a chance to speak impromptu. And this happens in a very regimented format. We always come in on the hour because we time everything, we keep it to the letter. You're building that skill of timekeeping, how to run an effective meeting. There's so much you're learning in Toastmasters. I'm keeping this simple, guys. I'm going to just ask a question. So, what is it in your organization that gives your employees the opportunity to practice their communication skills? And where are they getting the feedback? Have you ever come out of a meeting and you poured a whole heap of energy into a presentation? You're flat often because no one comes up to you, everyone's too busy. Has anyone come up to you and said, Declan, actually on slide 3, when you're developing that point, if you had paused and maybe slowed down and quietened your voice, people might have leaned in more. It doesn't happen, does it? That's what happens in Toastmasters. You get to practice in a safe environment and you get the feedback. It's as simple as that for me. I know there's a lot more and Pat will develop those themes a lot better than I will, but for me, that's what it gives back. I was asked to do this yesterday, and before, I have dyslexia and I grew up petrified to stand up in front of people. I'm only 4 years into Toastmasters. Now I think of these as opportunities to speak. I have an opportunity to speak today. Great. It's not, what am I going to do? Just get out there and talk to them about it. And that is the gift Toastmasters has given me. And that's the gift your employees can get as well from Toastmasters. So if you can't answer those questions I posed, where do they practice? What is the feedback mechanism? Why not set up a Toastmasters program? Steve.
Thank you very much, Declan. It's great to hear from your experience and how it works within Analog Devices, how you've personally benefited. And I can see on the screen lots of people applauding because it's wonderful to hear that experience. I particularly like to pick up on a couple of the things that you said. One of them is having that opportunity to learn something, practice it, get feedback and get better is incredible. And within all organizations and within all walks of life, we need to create those spaces, create those safe spaces where people can develop those skills that they're going to need, that they already need, and then put them into practice. It reminds me of, I was talking a little while ago to someone who was considering setting up a Toastmasters program. And we were talking about who could benefit from it. There was a remarkable comment about, oh, well, we wouldn't want certain group of people to do that because, well, they don't deal with the clients yet. To which I'm thinking, you want to learn the skills of dealing with clients before you deal with clients. So having that opportunity to practice beforehand is absolutely wonderful. Thank you. I would now like to hand over to Pat Johnson. Pat joined Toastmasters International in 1983 in Manitoba in Canada. Thank you, Pat, for getting up so early to join us in this session. During the 4 decades she spent within the Toastmasters organization and working as an educator, trainer, coach, public speaker, she'd learned a great deal about how people learn these skills that many people call soft skills. I don't like the phrase soft skills. I think they are very hard, they are very tangible, and they are arguably the most important skills that we are going to need in a changing world to help our organizations and to help our communities. Pat has been so successful in developing those skills and helping other people develop the skills that in 2010, she was elected the international president of Toastmasters International. Imagine that, taking something that's passion, taking something that is based around helping people develop their skills, and then volunteering to lead an organization of 300,000 people. Pat has literally written the book on this topic. So I'd like to hear from her on her experiences of helping organizations benefit from this approach to learning. Thank you, Pat.
Thank you so much, Steve, and District 71, all of you here today. I want to approach this topic today from the perspective that, just so that you understand, not only am I passionate about Toastmasters, but all of learning. And my professional career was largely founded in running and directing, being the director of learning and development in both the government and corporate worlds. So I sat in that office that hired trainers or bought training from companies as they came in and did their pitch to me every week. And I controlled that budget. I also controlled the needs assessment within our organization to determine what our employees need. So that's where I come from for this topic, passionate about both of those things. The first thing I want to say is if you're looking at empowering your workforce, it's the need to understand that it's a solid partnership that we're looking to create with you, that you will bring your systems and your internal processes, your training department, your philosophy around training to the partnership. And Toastmasters International will bring the curriculum. The curriculum is really a plug and play program. It's all inclusive. Now we've maybe had the privilege of going to an all-inclusive resort where you walk in and everything's looked after. Well, it's very similar to the Toastmaster program. If you, the employer, is bringing in the Toastmasters program, we'll have people like Steve and Elizabeth and Eileen and Declan that will show up to support it. And they will come, they'll introduce you to the curriculum that's online so that it's easy access and equal access for all your employees that you want to have access that. And there's proven content, as Steve referenced. It's built around adult education principles. It's been tested by millions of people over the 100+ years that we've been in place. So when we look at each of the assignments within the curriculum that you will receive from Toastmasters International, you'll find the learning objectives for each of those projects. You'll find the evaluation criteria for each of those projects, which not only teaches the person that's preparing the presentation what they need to do, but it also supports us in learning how to effectively evaluate that content and looking at, or that presentation, and looking at what we're actually focusing on. So we're developing people all the time. Everything we do in a Toastmasters program has a purpose. From the moment we walk into the room for that meeting that Declan referred to, we are listening. We're building our listening skills. We're building our critical thinking skills because we're analyzing what people are saying, because we're going to provide them with feedback. And then we're also developing those feedback skills. So I want to back up for just a moment and go back to what is different about the Toastmasters program versus regular training that may happen in your environment, in that corporate culture. From my experience, it's quite a switch. And I call it a paradigm shift, because often we think of training in the corporate culture is that we get bums in seats. We either set you in front of a computer, or we set you in a training classroom for a couple of hours, or maybe 4 hours, or maybe even 8 hours. And we throw knowledge at you and then we set you free. But as Declan referenced, there's no place to rehearse. There's no place to get feedback and build those skills. So Toastmasters operates differently. We're actually focused on building skills, which is very different than the knowledge push we get in the workplace frequently. Now, not all of it, but frequently. So let's look at the Toastmasters program and how it's set up and how it is different from the regular training that you may run in your training departments. First of all, it's either a weekly or a bi-weekly meeting, and usually for 1.5 hours. It's really up to individualization by your company and what works for you. That'll probably be based on how many people you enroll in the program, and we require a minimum of 20 at all times for a highly effective learning environment. So weekly or bi-weekly for 1 or 1.5 hours at a time. Okay, so that's very different than regular training in the corporate. It's going to be experiential learning. We're going to learn by doing because we're building those skills. We're giving you knowledge, but then we're asking you to put it to work right away, to build those skills, to solidify it in your body of knowledge and your comfort zone so that you can be relied on to bring that skill forward. One of the things that I find challenging in the corporate world is certainly one of my CEOs liked to stand in the doorway to see who was the instructor. And she was a bit freaked out when she found out there were no instructors in the Toastmasters program. But what I needed to explain to her was that it was peer learning, and everyone in the room got to play a part of giving feedback and helping each other improve. And that had a myriad of great effects beyond having an instructor in the room. So it's peer learning. We have mentors versus instructors. So we don't disappear. We're there all the time to support one another in various roles. And what I love is that environment of you give as good as you get, and that reciprocity, that if I'm evaluating Eileen this week, next week or a month later, Eileen could be evaluating me. And so I want to give a great evaluation to Eileen to set the standard that she'll also give me one of the same standard. So I love that peer pressure or peer collaboration that happens. There's a curriculum guide online that all our members get so that there's easy access to that. Within that guide, there is tutorials, there's explanations of how things happen, there's examples given, and even videos demonstrating some of the skills. So very supportive and current. There is a lot of engagement because of that skill development and knowledge. Not very often do we find people who show up for the Toastmasters program that sit back and go, I'm just listening. Now, I trained a couple times, at least a week, a couple days a week in classrooms. And I had a lot of people that came in and folded their arms and sat back and went, I dare you to teach me something. But in Toastmasters, the attitude is, I'll do that. And we're keen to learn. And the environment creates that because we're sitting with peers doing it. Toastmasters is a continuous program. As Steve referenced, I joined Toastmasters. It'll be 42 years in a week's time that I joined Toastmasters. I'm still here. I've shown up every week for 42 years to practice my skills and I still find that I'm continuing to learn and grow and thrilled to do so. So it's a continuous program. This was a surprise to me because one day I was sitting in my office at work, and an employee, one of the supervisors, walked in and she said, could you tell me when Jan graduates from Toastmasters? And I went, what? Graduates from Toastmasters? She said, yeah, she's been going for over 2 years. When does she graduate? I said, oh, there is no graduation. She gets to stay as long as she wants. And as long as you'll support her and you think she's growing and developing her skills, she can continue on the program. And so that was an enlightening moment for me and the supervisor. Toastmasters is unique also in that it starts locally. It can start in your organization, but to remember that there is a country around it. There's what we call districts around it. There's an international organization around it. So if your employee is superb at something, they could ultimately end up serving on an international board if they were so inclined. They could, in fact, stand on the international stage as a world-class speaker, all through Toastmasters and your support. And I know when I served as international president, my organization and my CEO came to me and said, we're honored that our employee is doing this. And they gave me extra time off to serve in my office because of that. And so it's certainly a perk for an organization to support your employees if that's what you do in your culture. So I want to talk about transferable skills now, because this is something that I, as that director of learning and development, was always looking for. Tell me what the transferable skills are. So you're telling me they learned to do this in Toastmasters, but how does that work in my workplace? So I'll talk about the transferable skills for a few minutes, and then I'm going to talk about the actual benefits that those are for you as a result of having your employees in the Toastmasters program. So first of all, there's a long list of transferable skills. For me, the top one is listening skills. That's the first thing I learned in Toastmasters was to become a real careful listener, a real critical listener. I listened, I suddenly heard language that I'd never heard before. I heard themes of the speeches that were given or the presentations that were given. I found that I had lots of questions of gaps that were in presentations that were given. So I suddenly became much more interactive and critical in terms of supporting the message in my workplace. So great listening skills. And you know what? Just an aside here, that was one of the hardest training programs to find for the workplace, was listening skills. Nobody teaches listening skills except Toastmasters does. The first thing you do when you walk in the room is start listening. The next thing that comes along with listening is thinking skills and the critical thinking skills, and I've already referenced that. And finally, for me in that trio is speaking skills. I think we listen, then we think, hopefully, and then we speak. And there's many ways that we learn to speak. First of all, the interpersonal communication that I learned. I was the person that had nothing to say. I was invisible. I would not speak. But I learned how to walk into a room and actually introduce myself to people, to present my ideas in front of groups, to ultimately lead a department, go to the CEO's office and present my plan for the year, etc. And those were things that I never imagined I would be able to do, but Toastmasters opened that door and helped me gain the skills to do that. Impromptu speaking is that critical skill. If you've got a workforce or you've got people that are meeting with clients and they've got those listening, thinking, and speaking skills, and that impromptu, so that they can answer the questions of your clients, or that they can have a dialogue with somebody that walks into your office, or perhaps your supervisors or managers meeting with their employees can have that back and forth impromptu exchange. Very useful skills. There's also the more prepared or informal presentations, so formal or informal presentations. And I've seen over the years many employees be called upon to represent the organization when they need a spokesperson, or perhaps they need an MC for an employee event, and the Toastmasters members get called because they've got the skills and they're comfortable standing in front of a group leading that. So if that would be useful in your workplace. And I think a point that was made earlier also is that you don't want to wait until those people are your supervisors and managers, but you want to train them before, so that they actually are stepping up into those roles because they know they have the skills and the confidence and the self-esteem to take on those assignments. Some more transferable skills, and I'll be a bit more quick on these ones. Leadership and emotional intelligence are things that we learn in Toastmasters because of our interaction and that peer learning, that teamwork. Accountability. I certainly have been held accountable in my Toastmasters clubs for things I say I'm going to do. I get checked in. Eileen was checking to make sure I was here today. Steve had the objectives set out. And so it teaches us how to hold one another accountable. Management training. There's a lot of management skills that are needed to make an organization function Likewise, to help the Toastmasters program function. And we get to practice that. We do strategic planning. So we build an annual plan and we present it to the district, which is part of the formal structure of Toastmasters International, in order for us to strive for our education achievements and our recognition worldwide. So there's reward and recognition in Toastmasters built in, but also that planning needed, thinking ahead. How can we be successful? What are the actions, the tactics, the strategies to get us to where we want to go? And finally, that teamwork as we all work together. And there may be a bunch more that I haven't referenced today, and maybe we'll have some of those in the formal discussion or informal discussion later on. So those are what I call the immediate transferable skills that I think about that apply to anybody in the workplace. So what are the benefits? Well, I'm sure you'll have some more to add, but the ones that came to my mind as I sat and thought about this was, first of all, the liaison relationship that happens between departments in your business. For example, Declan and Daniel may work for the same company, but maybe in different departments. Maybe they've never had an exchange or have no interpersonal relationships because they don't need to. But suddenly they're in Toastmasters and they start to learn about one another. There is a byproduct where Declan and Daniel's department starts to feel more connected, and it starts to break down silos and barriers within our workplace just because our people get connected and get outside of our cubicles. So if that's a challenge in your department, Toastmasters can help as a benefit. There is engagement. I find that the Toastmasters, for the most part, are people that are keen to learn and improve, but they're also supportive of other people learning and improving. And that creates an engaging environment where now Daniel and Declan meet one another in the hallway at work and they're going, "Hi, how you doing? I'll see you on Thursday at our meetings. That was by the way, that was a great presentation you did." Now other people hear this and they're feeling like, "Hey, am I on the inside or outside of this? This is kind of cool." I also know of an organization that I worked with to put Toastmasters in their environment. And they actually promoted Toastmasters communication and leadership program, which is our tagline. They advertised that in their new employee package as an employee benefit because they paid for it and they provided work time to do it. So it became an employee benefit, a highly sought after employee benefit. Now, this corporation chose to have no restrictions of who went. So they, in fact, had HR director in that Toastmasters club. They had their analysts, because they were a computer and consulting company. They had their analysts in that. They had their clerical staff. They had their contractors, their consultants in that program. So everybody, their policy was, and this is something for you to think about, where would it fit in your organization? But their policy was that when you walked into the Toastmaster program, you took off your official role hat at work and you became a student of communication and leadership in that room. And they thrived with that program for over 20 years in that company, and certainly experienced a lot of benefit from it. They also reported to me that they found that they had retention of employees because of it, that it created a great culture and people enjoyed working there. And we know, if we read the data in the workplace nowadays, that people leave because of supervisors, because of people, not because of the work. And so what if through Toastmasters you had well-trained supervisors, managers, whatever you call them in your workplace, that were giving feedback and suggestions for improvement in a kind, supportive way as we do in Learn How to Do in Toastmasters. So again, that retention of your employees, but giving them more skills. I'm sure there's many more. We've seen by the AI report out that there's collaboration and leadership, there's influence and persuasion, there's problem solving and adaptability, and certainly personal branding. So they say it in AI much more eloquently than I did in my list. But I would just like to say in closing that I believe from my experience that Toastmasters is a great proposal for you to consider if you're looking at any of those skills that I've talked about in terms of transferability that might work in your workplace, and or if you could see some of those benefits adding to your workplace, but also ultimately adding to your bottom line. So I'll pass it back to Steve, and I look forward to any questions that you may have following. So over to you, Steve. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pat, for sharing that wealth of experience and perspective and how the program works and how the program works to help organizations. It's always a joy to hear from you on the topic and to learn and to be reminded about the breadth of the different skills and abilities that we can develop. I particularly enjoyed how you pointed out that the Toastmasters program is about skills development, not sitting and reading and learning. Declan mentioned earlier about going to the gym, and I feel like I read a book once about exercise. Maybe I need the Toastmasters approach for my health in the future. The point about partnerships I would like to pick up on, because the Toastmasters program is a great framework. It's plug and play where you've got all the materials, you've got all the training, you've got all the support, but also it's embedded within your organization. So you can use it to help achieve your organizational goals, the challenges you have, and the opportunities that you have for the future. It reminded me, Pat, as you were speaking, of the company I'm a member of, and we have a Toastmasters program. And I was rather surprised and delighted when the Toastmasters group one day decided, we're so enthusiastic about the fact that we have a Toastmasters group in our company that we're going to put together a video and post it on LinkedIn about the fact you should come and work for us because we do Toastmasters. This is the kind of engagement activity that really helps bring people together. And I remember some research from Gallup, an international research organization that does a lot around employee engagement. They've got measures about what makes a difference to employees, engagement, productivity. And one of the main things is the ability to learn and grow in the role. And the other is having people who care about you and care about your development. This is one of the things that I personally find great about this program, because it provides the structure that you can just drop into an organization and see it grow and flourish to provide that. Before we move to our Q&A, and I'm sure we've got lots of questions and lots of networking opportunities, I'll just give a very brief summary about, well, how do you get started with the Toastmasters program? And more importantly, what's it going to cost me? Pat mentioned earlier about needing to buy in training and buy in materials and buy in this content. And we think, oh, gosh, that's expensive. One of the great things about the Toastmasters program is it's a non-profit organization. The majority of it's delivered by people who are passionate and enthusiastic and volunteer their time and effort to help people and help organizations. And that means the actual cost per participant is very low. To get started, you'll need a minimum of 20 people who are enthusiastic about developing their own skills and helping other people develop theirs. They'll study the education program. So all of the materials, all of the online materials, all of the training and networking and everything that's part of the program is made available to every single participant. They use those materials and get together in weekly or bi-weekly learning sessions, meetings, where they have an opportunity to put their skills into practice and talk about what they've learned, network and grow. You'll need 4 to 6 people as part of that group who will lead the program within your organization. Their role is to make sure that the program fits in with your organizational goals, and also to encourage people, to build those skills within the organization that you're seeking to build. Those leaders of the program themselves really benefit because they develop the skill to plan strategically, to put together a plan, to manage projects, to lead other people, to motivate people, to provide reports, have business impact. And the best news is that those leaders get comprehensive training from the Toastmasters organization and regular support and mentoring. Toastmasters also assigns each program to an area director who'll come visit, provide feedback, provide guidance to make sure you're getting the most out of the program. From a cost perspective, if you have around 20 people, a minimum of 20 people, it would cost around about, I've got my calculation here in euros and pounds, around 3,000 euros per year, or around £2,000 per year, just over £2,000. So if you think about it, for each person, that's about a tenner a month for all of this experience, all of this networking opportunity, a comprehensive program that covers all manner of things. And as we've heard earlier, the opportunity to become part of a network and a movement that can take people as far as they possibly want to go. So in summary, getting started is very easy. There is plenty of support available. What you'll find is that there are a lot of people that have benefited so much from the program, that have seen the benefits it has in their organization, that they get enthusiastic about going and helping other people. And that's what makes Toastmasters, for me, very special indeed. It's an opportunity to develop those skills. It's that safe space. It's that positive experience that can make a difference within organizations and communities. And that's what's so remarkable about it. Thank you for listening to our presentations. Thank you to Declan, thank you to Pat, and thank you to Eileen for supporting us here. We're going to move to our Q&A section now, so I'm going to stop this recording. But if you are watching the recording, then there will be some comments down in the chat about how to, in the description, sorry, about how to get in touch and how to learn more.